Hello and welcome to the Hoop Troop podcast. I am Matt O'Connor, and joining me as they do on all of our shows is my cousin Luke Drobner
What's up, guys?
and my brother Mike O'Connor.
I'm back.
And since last week when we recorded, there has been a single basketball game, but it did decide the fate of the 2021-2022 NBA season.
Yeah.
Right? It's 2022.
Yes.
And the Golden State Warriors came out on top in 6 games over the Celtics. That game was not particularly close. The Celtics, had that hot start, but that was about it. Then it was all Golden State the rest of the way. Steph Curry, Finals MVP. We'll talk about that. But Luke, what were your takeaways from this final series as a whole? I know we talked about it a little last week, but obviously now that there's like a real conclusion to it, what do you think? Was it just the Celtics ran out of gas? Were the Warriors truly that dominant? Is Steph Curry now, and we'll get into this, but I want to ask, is Steph Curry top 10 all time? Is it truly hitting that point? I don't know. There's a bunch of things that we can get into here.
Yeah, let's start slow here and just kind of talk about the Celtics.
Work into the dumb argument.
Yeah, the Celtics let's start slow and start with the Celtics not having enough gas in the tank to get all the way to the end of the playoffs. They played a really great series against Brooklyn. You see them sweep Brooklyn. Obviously, it's a tough matchup, even though all the craziness around Brooklyn and their team like being on the court and off the court and Harden wanting out and Kyrie not really being around. Also, I guess we'll talk about it when you get to the Warriors, but the Wiggins Kyrie thing with the vaccination, because both of them were unvaccinated before the season started. So, hey, but the Celtics play a tough series against the Nets, goes 4. Celtics do great. They come into the second round. They play a tough Bucks team, goes 7. Play a tough Heat team, goes 7. Then they come into the finals. They're going to play arguably the best team they've played, the most prepared team they've played here at the finals after playing some really tough series. Warriors kind of got a little bit of a break, especially with playing the Mavericks, who I don't think were quite ready to be in the Western Conference Finals. And kind of the same thing with the Celtics, who I don't think were quite ready to be in the finals. Obviously, they played great basketball here at the end of the season, but they just need a little more time and figure it out. Obviously, the playoffs are really hard with all the travel and whatnot. So Celtics, it's a learning experience for the Celtics. They just didn't have enough. And I think both Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum had a learning experience, and I hope to see them get better and compete for more titles.
You're handling this far more diplomatically than I am. Like you're looking
Why?
at the play. I think a couple things. I think you already kind of got there. I don't think either of these teams necessarily belonged in the finals. I think they both they played a Nets team that was just a disaster. They swept them, but I think a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference probably could have.
Bucks no Middleton.
Bucks without Middleton. The Heat were fairly injured, and I don't know. That is a tough series. So the Celtics get it there, but if you look at the Warriors, they played a very injured Nuggets team. They played the Grizzlies, and they didn't have John Morant for the back half of that series. And then they played.
Yeah, but that series was already over when John went out.
Though.
Yeah.
He got injured in game 3, and then they were down 2-1. It's not over. No way that's over.
I guess.
And their team of nobodies kicked the crap. Well, I'm not saying team of nobodies. That
was such a
kicked the crap out of the Warriors in one game. I'm just saying, if that's part of it. And then you mentioned the Mavericks. I think that road was relatively easy to get there. And then
100%.
But what team are you saying should have been there?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying I think that path was among the easier in recent memory. And you could do this with any championship. So many teams that go on to win get lucky with matchups and that sort of thing. I don't want to offer that as just exclusive to the Warriors, but I'm just saying they did benefit from that to get there. Then 100%. The Celtics to a certain degree did, not a tremendous amount, but then what they did in the finals was honestly pathetic. They were awful. No adjustments were made. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were, they didn't know what to do, and they made horrible.
I think there were adjustments made on the defensive end, and I also think the Celtics did a good job of reverse scheming Draymond out of playing defense. So it's we're just going to make it so hard for Draymond to be on the floor on offense that you can't play him on defense.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job of that. And they made the adjustment with Marcus Smart fighting over screens against Steph Curry rather than playing him in that drop coverage. Because Curry torched them for 40 that one game, and then they switched everything up. I think the biggest takeaway from the Celtics is just you're young and your stars need to take another step. I see Mike nodding his head.
Yeah, I completely agree, because I actually think this season, as good as the playoffs were, and it was a good season, it was pretty anticlimactic in the sense that everything that was supposed to happen probably should have happened.
Right.
Like the Warriors winning the championship makes complete sense. And also the Celtics were below 500 in January. They exceeded expectations like crazy. And when they got there, it started to feel like maybe it was their time, but it clearly wasn't, like you said, Luke. Also, none of the important people can dribble.
I mean, yeah, they need a ball.
Jason Tatum
can't dribble.
Jaylen Brown hurt at
and
times.
They're just, I mean, Randall is tough enough. Like we have to watch that every night.
Sure.
The dribble into nothing, jump in the air, and then don't know what you're doing. It happened a million times in the finals, and that's hard to watch.
Well, that was the thing. I mean,
So,
they got crushed on the turnover battle pretty much that whole series.
Oh,
the only games they won, the 2 games they won the turnover battle, but then in the ones they lost, they got crushed.
But I'll give them credit. Like I understand, like the Nets are a dumpster fire. That being said, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I'm gonna say, and Marcus Smart, like the trio with a decent team around
if they
them,
can stick together.
They beat Kevin Durant. They beat Giannis.
They beat Jimmy Butler in a good Heat team.
And out of all the teams, the number one seed in the East. Like they proved
they're
something.
legit, but not quite.
No.
They're good, but not great. That's
but they're 24 and 25, the two of them.
Yeah.
And
so I think there's a couple things too to tack on there. It is a first-year head coach. How many of those have actually made it to the finals? I'm assuming very few.
Ty Lue.
Right, like exactly. But on those LeBron.
Yeah, but with like a stacked LeBron team.
Right. So very few, I feel like. So that's a triumph. They are young, you're right. And then additionally, getting back to my turnover thing, like it wasn't even like it was the stupid mistakes. How you said they jump in the air and they turn it over, but it was live ball turnovers. So they didn't get the whole thing about the Celtics and why they were so great was their defense. They weren't able to play a set defense. And that's why they get torched in those other games. Because when they're committing these turnovers, it's leading to the fast break points for the Warriors. And that's where Steph Curry's so lethal, Klay Thompson's so lethal. And you get Wiggins and Poole, both of them were thriving in that environment. When you put them in the half court, not great. But the second they had the ability to run, you're so focused on, oh God, we got to find Steph and Klay in transition that the others are now open. And so there are things like that I think the Celtics need to work on. I think it starts with a facilitator and just like a general ball handler to be able to alleviate those turnovers. But there's not many of those on the market this summer. And 2, like you do hope that Tatum and Brown take that jump because why else are you paying them so much money? If they aren't capable of doing that, then they can't be on the same team.
I think they are. I think they are capable. That's
but they have to prove it.
But then
I'm not upset with Brown and Tatum. Sorry to cut you off there. I just think that they're missing pieces. I don't know if you feel the same way, Mike.
Yeah, they're missing pieces, but
Tatum was awful, Luke.
Tatum's
awful.
Again, I'll give them both the benefit of the doubt. It's their first time. They're also going what probably besides LeBron, the most experienced postseason players besides LeBron. And on top of that, I think this is also substantiates that point. The 43-point game 4 broke them. I think that was it. I think once that happened, they were completely against the ropes. Once it changed the tide of the whole thing. It changed the body language of almost everyone on the Celtics. Their bench became horrible. Derek White was pretty tough. It's another one of those guys where like you bring him in, he's a point guard, but like Marcus Smart isn't a point guard either, really. Even though you're playing him at point guard, you need a facilitator because Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, as they've proven now, are not somebody you want to put the ball in. Like you're not going to run pick and rolls with them all game. He's 24, Jason Tatum,
and at one point it might be a positive to run that type of set with him, but not every single play. He's not a Luka. He's not a LeBron.
But that's the thing. If you look at what he did in that Bucks series, in that game 6 in Milwaukee, when he goes for 46 points, he really stepped up and was like, I'm the guy. Anytime the Bucks went on a run, he was like, screw it, I'm putting an end to this. And he showed that drive. And then that totally.
But was he facilitating? He was scoring. And like, I think you need to, like, every great scorer is going to need a facilitator. I think when he scored those 46 points, I think Marcus Smart had a really good day just throwing nice, easy passes to Tatum off screens. And whether or not they got away from that, I think pace was another huge factor. Like you said, they turn the ball over. The Warriors are going to speed it up on you. They played the Warriors. The Warriors played the Warriors basketball that they wanted to play, completely disoriented the Celtics, right? Like
I mean, that's
At
how I
least
felt immediately at the start of the series. Even game one, I noticed that the Celtics won that game. The Warriors were in control for like 3.5 quarters of that game. And then the Celtics just went crazy in that fourth quarter.
Al Horford shot like 80% from the field.
Right. But it is funny. Like everything that was supposed to happen happened. And I think the Warriors pound for pound were supposed to win this series. But I still think no matter what, this was not a gimme. I thought the Celtics, when it was tied 2-2, it could have gone either way, even though game 4 was deflating. I don't know. It was just
they just ran out of gas. Game 5 and game 6, it just looks
I'm going
tired.
Full circle with what Luke said. I'm actually not. I'm very diplomatic and calm about the whole outcome. If I'm the Celtics, I'm ecstatic about this season. Yeah, it was an overachievement.
It definitely was.
100%.
But are they getting back there? And I'm not
maybe not next year, but
are they getting back next year?
There are years to come. 2-3 years
next year.
They're going to be a top 4 seed in the East for the next 5 years. They could potentially be in the Eastern Conference Finals every year.
Is that definitely true?
I mean,
yes,
it's definitely true, but it's
true. You have the Bucks. How much longer do the Heat have realistically? 2 years?
6 years.
The Bucks, the Heat, the Sixers, and the Nets are definitely all
okay. How much? Give me the timelines for the Sixers and the Heat. Because the Sixers, Harden's like, do I want to be here long term? Do I not want to be here long term? Even if Harden is there long term, what's it look like? They didn't look great this year, especially because Harden wants to play Harden ball and Embiid wants to play Embiid ball.
That's a rumor that's come out that he's apparently going to sign like a shorter term extension, not one of these long ones. So I think that depends. I think the long term outlook is a little different. But my guess is he signs like a 3-year big deal or something like that, which honestly I think works for both parties involved. Like the Sixers aren't stuck if Harden really does decline, and then if Harden wants out, he can leave after 3 years. So I actually think that one makes sense. But like realistically, that is still the window where you're saying the current Celtics team is going to be competing.
And then you mentioned the Heat. Jimmy Butler's 32. Kyle Lowry's 35. With the exception of Bam and Hero, which I don't think tandem of Bam and Tyler Hero are not getting you into the Eastern Conference Finals.
They have other moves they can make, though. They still have so many assets.
What assets?
Correct me if I'm wrong, they have all their future picks. I'm pretty sure they only gave up ones in last year's drafts to get Lowry. So
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I think Tyler Hero is the biggest piece they have.
I think the East is going to be competitive. I also think a lot of the timelines are now or bust. You have Durant, Embiid. You never know with Embiid. So like that's a now with Harden, obviously.
I think the Celtics have time. I'm not rushing it with the Celtics.
They have time, but I think you've proven like it could happen.
It could happen right now. Yeah. But it could also happen in 3 years.
It's a luxury.
But
you got to do it right.
I think we're all dismissing the fact that Giannis without Chris Middleton took them to 7 games. Like, and that Bucks team, the Bucks are going nowhere.
That's almost an unfair. No, it's not even almost needed to be mentioned. Like
but I'm saying for future,
the Bucks are the best team in the East, in my opinion.
Yes.
And if they hadn't messed up when trading Ibaka and getting Ibaka for DiVincenzo, I think the Bucks win that series because Grayson Allen was so awful.
Yeah. If
you had someone like a DiVincenzo, I think it's the Bucks series.
I just think, again, getting towards the forward thinking for the next few years out of the Eastern Conference, I think it absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, runs through Milwaukee. I mean, if Giannis even if he doesn't continue to improve and plays at his right, exactly. Realistically, he is. And if he just plays at this current rate, has a healthy Middleton, and then whatever, they're going to cycle players in there that support them. They already have the formula. They know it works. So, like, I think there are way too many question marks with this Celtic team to get through that. So I don't know that. I think this was their chance, and they kind of squandered.
I don't think so. I think Giannis is going to have a LeBron type impact on the East, where like every year you knew the East came through LeBron, right? Whether he was in Miami or he was in Cleveland, LeBron was whatever team LeBron was on, it was the team to beat. I think Giannis is going to have that same type of impact where it's like, okay, if we want to go to the finals, we have to be better than Giannis and his team, and that's going to be incredibly difficult. Yeah, if Middleton's healthy, that's the Bucks series easy.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we're doing like a little too early to tell next season to see what it looks like with the Celtics, just because there are so many question marks with their roster. But I don't know. I disagree with you guys. I don't think it's going to be so simple for them to start making these kind of continuous runs to go win championships.
I think you need a run like they just had to be able to evaluate what you actually need.
Yeah, sure.
I think they should bring Rondo back. The Celtics.
Just old Rondo. I mean, they
he's a facilitator. That's all he needs to be, right? He doesn't need to make the incredible Rondo passes he used to make. He just needs to move the ball for him. He plays defense.
We're all kind of spinning the wheels, but I think it is suffice to say, like, the NBA is only getting more competitive, but I think the Celtics should probably feel positively.
Fine.
I think the Celtics feel positive.
Let's go on the other side of the aisle here and look at the Warriors.
I want to mention, first thing I want to mention is the Andrew Wiggins vax buy-in. Because if Andrew Wiggins doesn't get vaccinated, then there's like, okay, we're paying you all this money. You know, Curry wants to compete. Thompson wants to compete. Draymond wants to compete. And you're not really buying in here. So the fact that he got vaccinated, I think, starts the season off on the right foot. And then they went on that huge run in the beginning of the season. They were the best team in the NBA. Everyone was like, they're going to win. They're going to win. Steph breaks the record in New York. You guys were at the game.
We were. Yeah.
And, they just had a great season overall, and they kind of slipped a little bit later in the season. I think they went through some injuries and just like reintegrating Clay and
right.
You kind of expect that, but when they got to the playoffs, they were ready. They heated up. They pushed for it. They made it work. So,
and I think that Steve Kerr deserves a lot of credit for that because he's shown just
100%.
Obviously, it's been centered around the three of Steph, Clay, and Draymond, and he's shown that we can really put anyone around them and we'll win with them. It's it was Harrison Barnes, it was Wiggins, it was Sean Livingston, it was Kevin Durant at one point, but then it was also Iguodala, Festus Ezeli. Like you had Kevon Looney, you had all these guys. Right. You had most
Andrew Bogut
in there for a while. Like I'm just saying, they've cycled.
They had an unreal bench. The 73 win Warriors team had an unreal bench. Top to bottom, that team was so well constructed.
And I know it's crazy, but I give Kerr all the credit in the world. As I kind of digest the fact that the Warriors won again, it feels right. Even though I've never in the LeBron versus the Warriors, I never was rooting for them. It does feel right.
Yeah,
but I've also kind of win. This is a thought I've been having, and I don't know if it's provocative at all. I think in the almost all time, but in the 21st century for sure, the only two players who I think it didn't matter who was around them made the team better it's a league of its own, Curry and Duncan. I think. Does LeBron have
LeBron?
I think LeBron like ends teams when he's on the, and I love LeBron. I'm a huge fan, but I think it's a different type of impact where Kevin Durant showed up and they won every year besides the Toronto year. Like it's different than LeBron and Wade having to kind of figure it out, losing the first, I don't know. It just, I think that I
disagree because when LeBron joined the Heat, they weren't the best team in the NBA. They were like middle of the pack.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's more, I'm just talking about the way that anyone could go play with this person and that the team stays.
Anybody could go play with LeBron.
I think Westbrook is just an anomaly. I think if they don't make that trade, you wouldn't be feeling this way. Honestly, I feel like
I think
you're hitting a recency bias here, and that the Lakers were injured. They had Westbrook and they had no bench. They were awful. Like the team was.
I'm not taking away that LeBron's the best player ever, and in the modern.
You have to think about how scalable Kevin Durant is and how scalable Steph Curry is. Anybody who can shoot and play defense.
Yeah, you gotta back this up. I don't want this to say that. To take away from Steph being great, because one thing I wanted to bring up, which I think comes from him now winning another ring and a Finals MVP, there are two questions being asked, and you're seeing it, across all the different pundits. But I'm curious to see what you think. One, is he the best point guard of all time? And two, is he a top 10 player of all time? And I think
this was the conversation we had on.
We were texting about this, but I want to flesh it out. I think yes to both. I honestly think yes to both.
Is he the greatest point guard of all time?
For Magic at this point. And the only thing you really have going for Magic is that he's bigger and can play multiple positions and he won more. But Steph's career is not over yet. And he's going to have so much scalability into his later years.
I don't know if I'm ready to say that Steph Curry is the best point guard of all time, but I'm happy to say that he's the best shooter of all time, undoubtedly.
What does he need to do to pass Magic then in your eyes? Because I honestly think if we were, let's say right now,
I know
the NBA top 75 lists are kind of stupid, but if we're drafting right now, just from scratch, we're picking every player who's ever played. I think Steph Curry comes off the board before Magic Johnson.
Probably not. Right.
We're doing a pickup game.
We're doing a
doing a pickup game.
Look,
I'd rather pick Magic over Curry. And that's just because if we're playing pickup, and this is just also like my personal preference, I want players who are all like the same height. I want to do it like the Raptors did it, and I'm just gonna play like 5 guys who are like 6'9".
But am I crazy?
Oh my God.
But am I crazy? Yeah, the pickup game thing is interesting.
All right, fine. Let's say it's a 7-game NBA Finals series, and we're both drafting teams. Let's look at it that way. I still think Steph Curry comes off before Magic Johnson.
Here's the thing, though. What was it? I mean, it was Showtime, Lakers, but
what Showtime?
Magic Johnson was in 9 finals in 12 years, or 9 finals in 10 years. Like,
they're very comparable. They both played on great
them.
teams in their area, in their eras. I can't help but it's a very close argument. I think Magic still has them edged out.
You're gonna have a spacing nightmare on your hands with Magic Johnson. Forget it.
No, but
I don't think Magic wasn't a bad shooter. He just wasn't a good shooter.
Definitely not by today's standards.
Not by today's standards.
Point line because of Steph Curry has changed things. So,
I think we revisit the point guard thing at the end of his career, because I think there's something that's when the narrative is completely done, because I feel like as far as top 10 goes, that is more of a done deal already than deciding the point guard.
So you think they're both in the top 10?
They're both in the top 10. Steph hasn't caught Magic in terms of being the best point guard of all
time. Yeah, they're both top 10. They're 100% both top 10.
Who were you kicking? So I know I sent that NBA top 75 list. I think Oscar Robertson comes off the NBA 75 list, and you stick him in. I also do just.
I think
this is a conversation for another day, but I think you take Bill Russell and Wilt out of there, and you put in Shaq and Kevin Durant. But that's beside the point. We can get on that another.
Yeah,
day.
I think
that is a conversation.
The other top 10. I don't know if I'd put Kevin Durant top 10.
I know. That's why I'm saying, like, let's stay. I want to stay on the Warriors because they did just win the finals. I don't want to like totally break apart yet, but we'll get to that in the offseason. We have a long offseason.
I still think I'm going to say another reason why I think he's top 10 all time. Just I'm bringing it back. Maybe I'll add LeBron to the list, but I think as far as anyone being able to play with this person, that is Steph's probably my favorite quality about him. It's kind of like Tim Duncan. It reminds me of like the way Tim Duncan. Anyone could have been around Tim Duncan, and he was just making it didn't matter.
Boris Diaw.
It was anyone.
I
looked this up because I knew I was going to get shat on for this.
Okay.
Tim Duncan won 71% of his games. If you were on a team with Tim Duncan, you probably had 48 to 55 wins every season.
Yeah, they were incredible.
It's like, what the hell?
But how much is I think Tim Duncan was great, and I think he made a lot of sacrifices for team success. But how much of that was just like the pop mindset? I think Tim Duncan was a great player individually, and put him on any team, I think he still wins at least one NBA championship. But
yeah, I mean,
I also think part of it was the relationship he had with Greg Popovich.
You don't think the Curry relationship is not?
I think it's 100% similar, but Curry had to play with other coaches before Kerr.
Yeah, Mark Jackson.
Jackson
got them there. Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, Mark Jackson invented Steph Curry. Steve Kerr pushed him to another level.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair point. But at that same time, though, like you look at Tim Duncan comes in, he's playing with the Admiral. Like he has a good mentor to learn from it. Like I
always had a team around him.
Player. And then there you have a pretty smooth transition into the Ginobili Parker era.
Yeah.
And then from there, they just, again, same thing. The same way I was just listing players that you've sprinkled in between Steph, Clay, and Draymond. They sprinkled players in between the three of them. I mean, most
Danny Green, Kawhi.
Right, Kawhi at the end of it. But even before then, like they had guys, Nick Kerr won a championship with Tim Duncan or Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
Nick Kerr. But yeah, so that's my point. Like you literally go through and like it's the same mold. But yeah, so I get what you're saying. Like these guys in the top 10 are all transformative like that. That's why I think it's so hard and why people do argue whether or not people go in and out. And it is to a degree subjective, but I think at this point, like it's undeniable. He transformed the game with his shooting. You look at every player that comes into the NBA now, all people care about is can he shoot? It's literally all they care about. And it's because there's such a focus on it. And it's all because of him. Like
it's length and skill. If you're like Chet Holmgren, you can do a little bit of everything, and you're also like 7 feet tall with a plus wingspan. It's so attractive.
But look at him. Like, look at the difference between on paper 20 years ago. Who would you rather have coming into the draft? Jalen Duren, or what's his name? Jalen Duren, right? That's his name, Duren.
Yeah, he's a
Memphis.
Like a push shot center pick and roll type guy,
or a Chet Holmgren. I don't think Chet Holmgren comes off the board before a traditional center 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's just the way the game's played.
Right. And it's all because of Steph Curry.
Yeah, totally.
100%. But I mean,
and analytics. I'm going to give analytics a little nudge there about the way.
There's no LeBron James without Magic Johnson. There's no Kobe Bryant without Michael Jordan. There's no.
It involves. That's fair, and I think that's part of the top 10 debate that I am omitting is the legacy piece and what it means for the league and whatever. Which is why I'm so easy to just be like, all right, sorry Bill Russell, you're not better than players now, but like, yeah, I do think that that is part of it. Like rules, I think there's a Wilt Chamberlain, like it makes sense, but I think we're also seeing just the league is changing because of Steph Curry. So I think it makes sense that he's getting involved there. It clearly has. You look at the 27 the Rockets, like you don't have, they were shoot every shot was a three. They didn't care. They were just chucking threes because that was the only way to beat Steph.
He was
Curry.
doing that with the Suns though.
Not to the same level of 3-point shooting. It was just a fast offense, but they still had like Mari Stoudemire inside. It was not the same thing.
With Harden, with Dan Antonio in Houston with Harden, it was ISO. Harden ISO'd, and then it was a kick out to a three or a layup or a step back.
Another reason just hopping off of what you were saying, it has to do with the Rockets. The switch on everything too, like having kind of what Luke just said with his pickup team. He only wants 6'9" guys and 6'8" guys who can all guard
who do a little bit of everything. Yeah.
So like the NBA has just changed drastically, and I do think it has a lot to do with like you can't afford to. The Rockets couldn't afford to try to stay with Steph through all the screens. You have to just switch. You have to, So I think it changed the architecture of defenses. It changed the strategy.
You want to have a Swiss Army knife on defense, someone who can guard 1 through 5, and then very specialized on offense, right? Like if you're Chet Holmgren, all I need you to do is like dunk, guard 1 through 5.
But then it brings it full circle to we're saying everything in the East runs through Milwaukee. You have that. Like Milwaukee has that
with Giannis.
So it's kind of I don't know. It all relates. It's a cool narrative. But
so we're starting to kind of head towards the draft. And I know there's probably more we could talk about about the finals. But before we get to the draft, there is one last thing I want to note about the Warriors. And it is pertinent because I think a lot of things can stem from this. Kenny Atkinson committed to the Hornets and then back and to stay as an assistant with the Warriors, which means
as the lead assistant.
One, he just crossed up Michael Jordan, which is, oh my God, the scarlet letter on his shirt right now is insane.
I don't think it matters.
Like the Michael Jordan, I took that personally meme. Like he is going to be on a warpath right now.
What's the future for the Spurs? How much longer does Curry have? How much longer does Steve Kerr have?
I think that's the question.
I like that Luke even called them the Spurs. My weird
the Warriors
today has my weird obsession with Duncan today is getting everybody.
It is.
But I think that's a good point. How long is Steve Kerr committing? Because that signals to me that Steve Kerr's like, look, if you wait, you can take the next generation, which is going to be Kuminga, Wiseman, Poole. Like you have that next wave that's ready. Not ready.
It's also a good organization.
Moody.
I feel like they do everything right.
Right. And so there is something to be said about like he's gonna like learn more from Kerr, they're gonna have more success, and then it's eventually gonna be his.
I think
but at the same time, like I don't think that Hornets job is a bad opportunity. We talked about this on last week's episode, Luke, because when he took that job.
No, I don't think it's a bad opportunity. I think it was a good opportunity. But here you have something with Golden State that's really, really great. And it's stable and you're probably pretty content, even maybe happy with your current situation. Why walk into a situation where you don't really know? And, maybe there's not so much mobility, like maybe Kenny Atkinson doesn't end up being the next head coach, but I feel like Warriors assistants continue to get hired to be head coaches other places. I think
Mike Brown just got hired. Granted, he has a different path.
I think
Coach LeBron, but
maybe the coaching carousel is different. But I think the consequence, if that is what it is, like maybe he's not getting your point of saying maybe he's not getting the head coaching job or wasn't guaranteed it. I think it's a pretty bad to accept a job verbally and then renege on it. And 100%. I think that's something that's going to make it hard to get considered. So if you're I think by doing what he did and foregoing this job and probably foregoing future ones because of this, people being worried about this.
He's got to have some type of role with the Warriors in the future, whether that's the lead assistant or
he must also be guaranteed.
look at like the Lakers who hired like 3 head coaches when they hired Vogel.
Yeah.
Right? Like here I am now. I'm in Charlotte. Is Charlotte just going to do the same thing to me? Where like here I am as the head coach, but the lead assistant also has head coaching experience.
Right.
And like I'm on the chopping block if they're not happy with me. Like there's a short fuse here on my like I need to push this team into the playoffs right here, right now. Otherwise, I'm done. And they're just bringing up the next guy.
I mean, I think that's a fair point. I think that could be a pretty serious deterrent. But I do wonder now what the Hornets' plan is. They have to now go back to the drawing board to the team, to the, coaching candidates who they were already like, we're not picking you, we're picking someone else, and now grovel and say, actually, we want you. Like, you're going back to D'Antoni, they're going back to Terry Stotts. Like, they're going to go back to.
I think it's a pretty repairable situation, though. You're like, look, this guy just screwed us. We didn't expect this. I feel like you kind of make up a little bit. I think, obviously D'Antoni went really far in the process and he was considered for the job. You might have missed out on D'Antoni, but I think there are other guys who still want that position. And I think the biggest mistake was I think they gave up too quickly on James Borrego. They were nothing, 2 years ago?
The weird
He's done more. I would have given him more time. It's the same.
Who's
same thing with.
I don't know.
Like,
offhand,
that's not. Is that Jordan's decision?
I know he's definitely involved. There is no
He's
way
the owner of the team
does not sign off on their head coach. There's no way. Any organization, the owner's always involved. But sure that he's like, all right, front office, you guys do it. But then,
like, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that Jordan wants. I'm gonna call it the old wave, a D'Antoni or a Stotts or something. Versus, I mean, who's.
You want to do like a player coach, someone who played a long time, maybe wasn't so great, but understands how to play the game.
Sam Cassell. Sam Cassell keeps getting murmured about all these different jobs. I feel like he's kind of Chauncey Billups-esque, probably better too. He's definitely got a ton of experience. I'm shocked that's not more in the conversation. That being said, I'd like to see D'Antoni just like
D'Antoni LaMelo
have an exciting Hornets team.
It would be cool.
So.
I think if Chauncey Billups had a better season in Portland, things would be different for Sam Cassell.
I don't think he would have had a different season in Portland. I mean, that was doomed to fail. Dame gets hurt. Like, they're just bad. Like, there's nothing. You could put any head coach. You could put Red Auerbach there. You could put Steve Kerr.
It would be really tough, 100%. But let's say the Portland Trailblazers make the playoffs and win a series. Now everyone's like, well, Willie Green had a good year, and look at what Ty Lue's doing and look at what Monty Williams is doing, right? And so you have all these player coaches. Udoka obviously just took the Celtics to the finals. You kind of have to say, like, look at all these player coaches and how much success they're having. And it's because they know how to approach players and talk to them. And the Lakers just hired a guy who used to play, Darvin Ham. So, and Giannis was speaking highly of him. He's like, wow, he's just so easy to have a conversation with. He understands the game. He understands me as a player. He understands what I need to do and he works with me.
Yeah.
So
I do think they'll figure it out, but I do think that's a huge blow because I think Atkinson would have been perfect to like mold that young core they have in Charlotte. I really do.
And that's the only game that Michael Jordan's going to care about.
Michael Jordan, oh my God, he's gonna come on and give
play.
He's literally gonna give Kenny Atkinson the chair at center court.
Yeah, it's great.
Also, like, do you want to be branded like a Dwayne Casey as like a development guy where you get brought in for a couple of years and then you get fired as soon as a team's ready to compete? Does Kenny Atkinson want to be like that, or does he want to be
the Nets? He probably has trust issues after getting absolutely outed by the Stars for no reason, really.
For no reason.
Yeah, realistically, yeah.
I want Kenny to be happy. That's what
I'm sure he is, because you don't go back like that unless you are.
Yeah,
there's no way. I'm sure he tasted the champagne and had to go back, but all right. So that's out of the way. Want to transition, and now we can get into some draft stuff. I know we've been on for how long have we been? When did we start? We started like at around what?
3.
So okay, so yeah, a little before. So we're like around 40 minutes.
40 minutes. But
this can be like I'll do a part 1, part 2. So this will be the first part, and then we'll get into the second part.
All right.
But so let's do a little draft preview.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about, just like off-season wise. I feel like there's a lot of trades, a lot of rumors, kind of things shaking up.
What do you think about this strategy? Should we just talk strictly the draft and like what we think might happen related to the draft? Or are we talking? I don't know.
I think what we should do is at least just walk down. I think it would surprise me if any of the top 3 change. I don't think any of Orlando, OKC, or the Rockets move. Is that fair? And I think it's going to be all 3 of those power forwards who go: Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, and Paolo in whatever order. Like I think that's subject to change. I think it would. I think maybe package and try and move up to get their guy, but like I can't see much changing here. And I think it is pretty much set in stone that those 3 are going 1, 2, 3. Is anyone else opposed?
No, I think you're right. And I think Paulo is kind of a lock at 3, whereas 1 and 2 are more question marks. Are the Magic going to try and go Chet, or are they going to go with Jabari Smith? And then I think OKC will just end up picking whichever one wasn't picked. With that being said, I'm not huge on Jabari Smith. I know a lot of people are. I think he could end up, I think he has like a Jason Tatum type ceiling. Obviously, we haven't seen how great Jason Tatum can be. It gives you a lot of hope because they have a similar type game. I think Tatum in college was definitely more of a off the dribble creator, whereas Jabari Smith is like a post up, face up 4 type of guy. He's more like Carmelo Anthony. So we'll see.
I agree.
I like Paolo.
I do also. I think Paolo too landing in Houston is actually a very good spot.
I think it's good for him.
And Jalen Green figuring it out. They're both gonna have the ball in their hands plenty. Them trading Christian Wood pretty much opens the big, like any big role to be his. So he can go in now. He can be the screener on most plays. He can also be receiving the screen. Like they're gonna be able to throw so many combinations down there where you're not gonna have to worry about feeding Christian Wood, who's kind of shown to be a little temperamental. And I know we haven't talked about the Mavericks trading for Christian Wood. It's not like the Rockets got a tremendous amount back. They got picked 26 or whatever it was, 23.
I think the Mavericks won that trade, and I think, I don't know. I think the Mavericks. I still think the Mavericks need more, but I think it's a good move by the Mavericks, and I think it's a step in the right direction, especially because they pretty much gave up nothing.
I think the Rockets could have gotten more for Christian Wood, so I don't want to say that it was a bad trade, but I think it was smart considering where they're heading in the draft. They knew that they had 1 year left with him, and Christian Wood was gone.
Yeah,
100% he was leaving. So you had to move him, and you give a team a chance now. You couldn't wait through into the season to make that move. So I think it was the right time for them. They probably should have tried to get more, and maybe they couldn't have. Maybe that was the best deal on the table. My guess is it wasn't, but who knows?
I think they just pulled the trigger. Yeah, but I think that was a lot of the Rockets trying to play some of their younger guys and him not really being committed. Kind of like what Kevin Love did when the Cavs had that one down year where he was
And I think, though, the one thing now the Rockets are being honest with themselves. They're putting themselves in the same conversation as the Thunder. They're saying, look, we are young. We're going to lose a lot, and we're just going to develop our players. And I
think they can get a lot for Eric Gordon, too. I think he's valuable.
I saw they were looking for a first-round pick, but I still don't – I don't think that's the –
I don't think they'll get a first-round pick this year, but they might get, like, 2022 second and a 2024 first, and maybe a player do some salary matching.
You're telling me the Bucks wouldn't want that and would give up some futures? You're not worried about later right now? I don't know.
The Lakers, maybe.
But they don't have the picks, right?
They have 2 picks.
They have Taylor Horton-Tucker.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe they'd want that.
But it's interesting. I agree with what you're saying about Paolo. I feel like that's a really good spot. And I also feel like years down the line, we'll look back on this draft and probably maybe
there's a lot. There's some question marks at the top. I think the general consensus is that Paolo is the most ready right now.
I think
that has the lowest ceiling out of the 3 of those players.
That's also why I think it's perfect that he's ending up in Houston, is because they need someone who is more NBA ready. Like, I think it would be a terrible.
I still think he's
to try and like get Chet into NBA ready shape and get stronger. Like, you need a guy who's a little more ready to contribute right away. So I actually think it worked out nicely there.
I think Chet has the biggest boomer bust. I think Chet could easily be the best player in this draft, but also could easily be the worst out of these top 5 picks.
Oh yeah, he could be Anthony Bennett. I mean, that's bad, but I mean, he could be terrible. He could get bodied around, hurt a lot because he's so thin, and done. It could be like I don't know. He could be what Poku is, and everyone thought, oh, maybe Poku could jump, but
like it's a good chance. But I think Poku was definitely a little bit more of a question mark, which is why he went later in the draft. And I think Chet is a little more NBA ready, just coming up through the system, whereas like Poku was a discover, and I think Chet's been preparing for this his whole life.
I do think with the drafting of Chet, if he does go to Oklahoma, I think we start seeing the winds of change there, and I think we actually start seeing the winds of change.
So now,
maybe.
So now,
I think they would start winning. I think it'll start the Oklahoma's plan starts to kind of
develop a little bit.
Orlando, though, are you willing to take that risk on Chet?
I
feel like the Thunder are. They have picks until the end of time. If they miss this one, we'll make the next one.
I think they feel like Orlando has. We have Suggs. We have
Cole Anthony.
They have a lot of guards.
They have a ton.
They need a big.
Yeah, I have a feeling they're rolling the bones with Suggs and saying if we got Jabari Smith with what we think Suggs could be.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. I think they are looking for a more likely or a higher floor type player
also,
than Chet necessarily is.
Important to mention that Jalen Suggs and Chet Holmgren played for the same high school, so they know each other well.
That is a very good point.
If you look at the roster the Magic have, Jonathan Isaac at this point's done. He's torn his ACL like 3 times. Then they have like Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, RJ Hampton, who are all
young.
under 20. Markelle Fultz is kind of on the way out, but RJ, they paid him a whole bunch. RJ Hampton's 21, Cole Anthony's 22. They have Jalen Suggs, who's 21.
Both Wagners.
Both Wagners, who are both young. Franz is 20. Mo is 25. They have Wendell Carter Jr., who's 23. They have Mo Bamba, who's 24. I think the rumors were that Mo Bamba may be on the move to try and make room for whoever the Magic drafts.
So, they also have Bol, right? Am I wrong here? They traded for him in the middle of the year?
Yeah, but the fact that he wasn't able to find rhythm in Denver,
it scares
me. Makes me think that, and the fact that he fell so far back in the draft, he was a second-round pick, also kind of makes me think like.
But what?
So I think he'll be around in the league for a long time because his potential will never be fully realized. But I don't think he's going to play valuable minutes for anybody anytime soon.
I do think the other thing, when you look at that Orlando rosters, they've already kind of taken their shots at young players who can kind of start making that step where now they need to start winning just a few more games. They're like kind of not in that 15 to 25 win range. They're hoping to get closer to 30. And so,
so do you take a shot on Chet, or you draft something a little more sure with Jabari Smith?
Right. And so that's why I think they're probably going to go Jabari Smith. I think it makes more sense for where they're at. They can't necessarily say, kind of like the Rockets and the Thunder are saying, like, all right, fine, if we lose every game, it's not the end of the world. I think for them, they're really starting to say, like, all right, look, we're building this core. We want them to start winning now and start making a little more progress. Whether that does happen or not, I don't know, but I think they need that more NBA ready player now. I
also think they're missing a lot between guard and center, where Chet, I think, would end up playing more of his minutes at center, whereas Jabari Smith is definitely more of a forward.
Sure. So yeah, I think that's a good point. And I mean, it also remains to be seen what they'll do in the offseason and just how they'll kind of pair people if they move like a 10 cross. I don't know.
I'd love to see them move Mo Bamba for something. I don't think Mo Bamba is very valuable, but literally anything at this point would be better. A late first, a couple seconds, a veteran player, anything really. So
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think it absolutely makes sense. But all right, so now that we've gone through the first 3 picks, 4. What the hell is happening at 4? The Kings are a nightmare. Like
I can't help but feel they have to trade that pick.
Well,
Jaden Ivey said Jaden Ivey hasn't worked out or been in contact with
the Kings.
But yet
he worked out with
the consensus.
He worked out with both the Pistons and Pacers, though, who are right behind them,
5 and 6.
Right.
But he's the consensus 4th best player in this draft.
Oh, without a doubt.
From what? Right.
I'd say there's definitely
the 4th highest potential in the draft. I think Keegan Murray is probably more NBA ready than Ivy. And that's because I watched both of them play a lot of Big Ten basketball. I think Keegan Murray's a shooter and a little more patient with the way he scores and passes and rebounds and whatnot, whereas Jaden Ivey just runs.
Yeah,
he is. He's like Westbrook. The best comparison is a Westbrook. I think.
How tall is he?
Westbrook's obviously he's 6'4", 6'3".
Ivy? I thought Ivy was tall.
Ivy's 6'4".
Oh,
He's like 6'3", 6'4". He has similar measurables to Westbrook. I think Westbrook's a little stronger. I think Westbrook's a little more bold,
mm-hmm.
but in the same type of way where both players kind of rely on their athleticism to have everything be done for them. Because I mean, there are times when Jaden Ivey's electric. Like he'll go for a shot, I'm like, there's no way, and he does like some like twisting, spin it off the glass.
He's
like
an acrobat.
I was like, well, he is. He really, really is. He has an incredible finishing ability. I think John Morant's a good comparison, but John Morant is a far better passer than Jaden Ivey is. Decision maker, passer, and I think Ivey relies on inside outside scoring. It's either a three or it's a layup. There's no long twos, there's no pick and roll pull-ups, there's no floaters, it's either straight to the rim or a 3-point shot. And that's very Westbrook.
Develop though. Because that shot profile are the two more important shots, and then you develop those other areas of your game to become
in between.
Scorer. It's harder to either back it up or move it in at the rim.
But you'd like to see some type of potential there, right? When I watch Jaden Ivey play, it's like when he pulls up from 10 feet off the bounce, I'm like, no. Like as soon as he does it, as soon as I see him like slow down to pull up, I'm like, no, it's not going in. I know there's no development there. There's no.
So what you're saying is whatever team drafts him, like get ready for a year of like maybe some frustration.
It's a project.
A little bit of frustration.
There's going to be the first contract's going to be bad. Such a high ceiling. He's so athletic.
Right.
He's very confident. Right. He was never afraid to. He never shied away from the moment. When we needed a big shot, it was his ball, and he wanted the ball. It wasn't like coach was like, "We need you to do it." He was like, "I want to do this." So,
but everything you're describing is not what the Kings need. So the Kings have no business taking him at 4.
And I don't think the Pistons have any business taking him either.
I don't know. I think he could work next to Cade Cunningham. I don't love it.
No, but Cade's the man. I think Jaden Ivey needs to be the man.
But I think they're kind of in that Magic territory of like, we have enough younger people now. We're trying to start winning a few more games, get ourselves to be a little more competitive, where if you put Cade and him together, you'd figure maybe we can start scrapping and getting them. Like you have, what's his face from Villanova? Sadiq Bey, who's shown he's a very solid player. Like they have enough positive young players now where I think it would make a little more sense. I agree it's not the perfect fit. I like him on the Pacers. I think him and Halliburton, because especially if the Pacers do sell Brogdon and Miles Turner, like you are committing to having a project year. You're not going to be great next season. So I think it would make sense. He's from around there. He grew up a fan. He even mentioned that it would be cool to play for them. So like, I think that's definitely a likely destination. I do think the Kings are stupid enough to take him, even though he said he's like not tremendously interested. So like, I
have not worked out or contacted him 2 days before.
I've heard the Wizards have contacted the Kings. I don't love that fit, especially if they have Bradley Beal. Then I've heard the Knicks have looked to trade up. And then I think that might be it. I think as far as teams in that like lower, like late-ish lottery, I think it's really among the Pistons, the Pacers. I don't think it's the Blazers. I don't think it's the Pelicans. But then my
roommate just sent me a Legion Hoops tweet. Kings, who had the number 4 pick, are reportedly very high on Keegan Murray.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. So they might be comfortable saying, "Hey, Pistons, what do you got to move up?" And
if I'm the Pistons picking at 5, I want Keegan Murray, and that's because I don't like Shaedon Sharpe. Everyone's like, "Oh, he's going to be so good. He's so unknown," but I don't have the patience for that. I'm very comfortable taking Keegan Murray and kind of adding him to my core, right? Cade, Sadiq Bey, Keegan Murray. And then, I can find that combo guard next to Cade in the future. Maybe I get lucky like the Mavericks did with Jalen Brunson and pick somebody, in the second round. Or I'm not exactly sure what the Pistons have in the future pick-wise, but, they have history there too. So
in that same range of 4 to 6, and realistically 7, because I think the Pacers or the Blazers could use a player like this. I think Keegan Murray is perfect in that 4 to 7 range. Any of those teams could use a guy like him that's 6'8", like can shoot, but like also like a fairly strong defender, but very offensive minded. Like I think that's a very strong fit for a lot of teams. I guess he plays power forward. I could see him. You could play him at the 3 if you wanted, because he's not like the strongest yet. But I think that's like they all have guards and they have infrastructures built to kind of put him in. He'll be in the starting lineup. Does not have to be your focal point year one, but I think it's a good spot. He's a good complement to what they currently have. So That's why I do think it makes sense for a lot of those teams to be weighing, is it Keegan Murray? Is it Ivy? I don't know. And so especially Sacramento, they have no business taking Ivy. I think Keegan Murray is a far better fit on that roster.
I'm going to be very bored if that's what the Kings decide to do with the 4th pick.
No, but I think that makes 5 a lot.
You got to trade it.
Because then everyone's hungry at 5 to get Ivy. If
then,
Ivy falls to 5.
But don't the Pistons just take Ivy at that point? I think at that point you just do it.
Or
at that point you do it and try and work out a trade.
Yeah, I think a good offer is going to come through. If he falls out of the 4th spot and then there isn't like there's no consolation prize, we'll get Keegan Murray. Like the offer will go up. If it's like, oh God, we have to go now to get him.
So the Pistons are in the driver's seat of that ask.
But that's a big if. And also this could be misinformation of them putting out, oh, we're interested in Keegan Murray, just to be like, okay.
Also, aren't the Pistons, I mean, this is again not draft related, but the Pistons, an arrow in their quiver is they are going to trade Jeremy Grant, right? So like the Pistons have a lot that we haven't seen the final.
They could yet. Very easily move up.
But again, that's not draft related.
That's a deal. That's very much a deal that could get done on draft.
But maybe you don't have to move. Oh, to get Keegan Murray.
If you want to move, if they want to move up, that is absolutely something in their arsenal. And the Kings want to win now. So that's the player you'd be saying, here, we'll give you 5 and we'll give you Jeremy Grant if you give us 4 and something. We'll take a whatever.
4 and who?
I don't know. Harrison Barnes, maybe like a 2nd rounder or something like that. I'm not saying that's equivalent. I would have to do more. I have to look into what their assets are, but something along those lines where you get an expiring deal back to give up Jeremy Grant that as a more win now player, and then maybe a future draft asset to drop one. I don't know.
Fair enough. I think the Kings have to trade the pick. Pistons want to get lucky and find their guy at 5. If not, I think and the Kings really mess up with that pick, or whoever's picking up 4 messes up. I think the Pistons could be in a really great situation at 5. 6, you're kind of hoping Ivy falls in the draft a little bit. I really think the Pacers would do really well with Ivy, especially because Halliburton is, I think, a really great compliment to Ivy. I think he's a good decision maker, and at times you can be like, hey, we need you to be a playmaker and a decision maker, but at the same time, it's like, now Jaden Ivey has the ball and you're a shooter in the corner. I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Especially if they're going to be selling everybody. If Brogdon's out, if Turner's out, just let him run. So.
And now I don't want to skip over the Blazers at 6, because obviously there's rumblings that they're trying to move Brogdon and Miles Turner and really kind of go younger.
The Pacers.
So I don't want to skip over 6, but I think realistically, once you get outside of Ivy and Keegan Murray, let's say, for example, the 5 we talked about are the top 5. There's so many rumors about, like, I don't know, the Blazers at 7 wanted to trade down for a win now player, but is trading to 7 smart for any team behind them? Because can you confidently tell me Shaedon Sharpe, Dyson Daniels, Benedict Mathurin, Sochan, Johnny Davis, either Mark Williams or Duren, like, can you confidently tell me any of those guys between 6 and 12 are going to be better than the other? I think it is such a toss up with all of those guys that it's not worth. If you're going to if any of these teams in the lower to late lottery are going to trade up, it's not to 7. You have to go earlier. So that's why
if I'm the Pacers, I'd trade up to 4 to get my guy.
Yep.
And it makes a lot of sense because the Kings want win now players like a Malcolm Brogdon. I understand they just did business trading Sabonis and Halliburton, but I think that's the most sense.
They just
and then and
just put somewhere else.
Yeah.
But with De'Aaron Fox, I guess that's the difference.
I think at 7, like the only people I really think would like that 7th pick would be OKC. It's like, okay, we don't like anybody here in the top 3. We'll trade down from 2 to 7 and we'll just pick someone who kind of fits our system. Now we're drafting a little bit more for fit rather than
aren't they in love with
boomer bust.
I mean, I could also see OKC trying to package and move up. Because, I mean, they have pick 34, which, like, yeah, it's in the 2nd round, but it's essentially a 1st rounder. It's so early.
Yeah.
They have, what is it, 12, 13? No, they have 12. Like, I could see them trying to package those to move up into that range of, like, 7 to 10 and getting a guy there. So then you get 2 top 10 guys. So, yeah, I definitely think that's possible. But realistically, if you look at these other teams, if you look at the Spurs, if you look at the Wizards, if you look at the Knicks, if you look at the Hornets at 13, like, Why?
7, 8, 9, 10, I think you're going to get a similar prospect no matter what.
Right. And that's why I don't know why the Blazers think they have as much leverage as they do in a trade here, because I think a lot of those guys are very, very replaceable with each other. Because I think they all have their own strengths. Like for me personally, I like Dyson Daniels the most. But
I think maybe
you could easily convince me that AJ Griffin is going to be the best out of them, or Shaden Sharp is going to be the best out of them. Or
I think the Blazers could definitely try and make a deal with the Pistons for Jeremy Grant, and the Pistons can draft 5 and 7. But you're not going to get any picks back. I don't think it's going to be almost a 1-for-1 swap.
And then I'll just bring up, I think the only reason, and it's definitely not going to happen, but if someone like the Knicks, who are eyeing Jaden Ivey apparently and want to get to 4, did like a staggered, a couple layers of trades, like get to the 7 and then package a few things.
I think
7. They were going to do Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks for the 7. But then would it be the 7 and like Randall and something else to get to 4? But again, I think that is not happening.
I mean, I think 3-team trades are very much in play here, because I think a lot of times 2 for salary reasons, you have to do that. So I wouldn't rule it out.
Like, it's not necessarily about the 7 pick. It's more about like what else is moving in a 3-team
I've
trade.
seen those frameworks leaked where you have teams kind of in that like 10 to 15 range. Then you look at the Blazers, who have said they're looking to trade it, and the Kings, who are looking to trade it. And they've worked out 3-team frameworks. It's just hard to justify, like, all right, Blazers, you're moving back to 11, Kings are moving back to 7, and then whoever up is, or the Knicks in that case, are moving up to 4. It's hard to make that work, to make everyone feel like they're getting what they want.
Yeah, you sent the Knicks moving up to 2 earlier today.
There was some rumor,
which I don't think
about
makes
that.
sense.
I don't think it makes sense for anyone involved. I don't see why the Thunder would do it. I don't see why the Knicks would do it.
Yeah.
I don't see. So I didn't love that rumor, but it was, you see people with the blue check mark putting it out there, and I like to send it to you guys just to spur conversation.
You sent Hawks trying to move up to 4 by trading John Collins. I think that could be interesting. But
are you really sure John Collins? You like, for the same reason that I've seen the arguments that they probably want Julius Randle because they just got Sabonis. Like, would you really want John Collins on that team? Like, I would rather have Julius Randle than John Collins.
If I'm the Hawks, though, I'd rather trade John Collins to Portland. And like, I don't know. I don't think the Hawks are going to get much more value out of the 4th pick than they would the 7th pick. They're picking at 16 right now.
I think that's very true, because you already have your primary ball handler, and so it's not.
You have Trae Young.
Jaden Ivey's not that guy.
Wouldn't Keegan Murray be pretty good on the Hawks too?
I think Keegan Murray would be good on the Hawks. Right, and so like I move up a couple spots, and hopefully Keegan Murray is my guy. Otherwise, I pick Mathurin or AJ Griffin or someone like that.
Yeah,
but
I think those are solid comparisons, like for what would fit there. But like I also like I think the Wizards are another one that you see as like rumored to move up and want something, which again makes sense, especially depending on all these weird things about Bradley Beal being like, I know what I want my future to be, but I'm not telling anyone. Like, whatever that dumb crap is, like, it's so uncertain for what they need to do, which is why you throw everything in, you're moving up, and we're just gonna get some more good young players.
I think Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard are in very similar situations where I don't think either of those guys at this point in their career are going to be a number 1 option on a championship team. But both of them are going to continue to, like, these organizations, the Wizards have never wronged Bradley Beal. The Portland Trail Blazers have never wronged Damian Lillard. They just haven't been able to put together a winning team.
I mean, the Blazers got the Western Conference Finals. And those
one time,
Beal and John Wall teams were solid, and then John Wall.
They were, but those were John Wall teams, not Bradley Beal teams.
That's fair.
And so I think the Wizards a little bit have failed Bradley Beal, but not wronged him. And same thing with the Blazers; they failed Damian Lillard, but not wronged him. So I don't think either one of those guys are ever going to say like trade me, but I don't think either one of them are happy or overjoyed with their situation in their current team on their current team. So I don't know. I think Bradley Beal is someone you stop giving extensions to, or you trade him. And I just like, as an organization, I feel like that would be more classy. But also, like, if I trade Bradley Beal, I want a little bit of a haul. I see what teams get for Harden. I see what teams get for Anthony Davis, right? Like, I want some reassurances that I'll have something to build.
And also, Bradley Beal doesn't come with like, even with Anthony Davis, like forcing your way out, like the attitude, it's really not there at all. Like,
I also think it's going to be in between the two of like I think it's going to be in between what you get for like the Harden Anthony Davis, like that giant haul, and then something like Drew Holiday, where it was three first round picks or whatever. I think it's going to be something in between there because obviously Beal I would say is better than Drew Holiday, but is definitely not on the level too. Yeah, it's debatable, but I'd say at least the perception around the league is Beal is better than Drew Holiday. So I would imagine it would end up being more than that. But it's not going to be like the 4 first round picks and 4 pick swaps or whatever. Like it's not. You're not going to get that.
Yeah.
100%. No way you're getting that for Beal. Nor would I ever trade all of that for him.
No, I don't think Beal's a transcendent player by any means, which is why you're not going to get the James Harden or the Anthony Davis package. But you can definitely get a lot for him, and it's just finding the right time. And I don't know. I feel like the Wizards kind of gave up a little bit acquiring Porzingis. I think everyone kind of sees Porzingis as like a negative, especially after his time on the Mavericks. So
except they did do themselves a service by getting rid of longer contract, like multiple longer contracts in Dinwiddie and Bertans, which neither of them were playing well on the Wizards. So like obviously we saw the Dinwiddie surgeons kind of next to Luka, which fine, but that wasn't happening in Washington. So you can't really account for that. And so I think you consolidated assets and you committed to having a losing season last year without Bradley Beal. So you bring in Porzingis. Like I actually didn't hate that move, and I do hate Porzingis. So like whatever.
I think they're moving towards a rebuild, which could quite possibly indicate the fact that Bradley Beal will be on the move at some point in the near future.
Yeah. I mean, I think so too. And I think him not disclosing that he's willing to stay, I think signals that, but I think that it adds the uncertainty of draft night because I think a lot can change based on a lot of the, you always hear, all these things are, held tightly to the vest. All these teams are not really like signaling what they want to do. So I think a lot can change in the next 3 days.
I think there's a lot of potential, like, in this year's draft, as an example, the Kings here, they want to win now. They have the 4th pick. Let's say the Wizards really fall in love with whoever the 4th best prospect is. Why not trade Bradley Beal for the 4th prospect, right? Yeah. But they have to have that type of situation where they really want to move up. They need to have the perfect situation to move Bradley Beal. Otherwise, there's no reason to move on from him. He's not going to say he wants out. He's not going to force his way out. And, like we're bad with him anyway. You have the 10th pick. So
my prediction, the Wizards won't even matter in this draft on Thursday. There are like 5 or 6 teams that matter. And I don't,
they're going to draft whoever they get at that spot.
It is. It's in that interchangeable range of 6 to 12.
It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And the order might be interesting to watch. Like that'll just be funny to see who picks who.
The draft does start at 4 though. So I think that's where it'll get more fun. We might see like a little like, Chet went first over Jabari, but I think that's like the only like little random thing. But I think at 4 is where the chaos can start to break. And it always happens on draft night. There's always at least like 2 or 3 trades.
Yeah.
But
I think there'll be a couple of trades high in the lottery. And then obviously as the day goes on, you're going to see a lot of movement late in the first.
Yeah, as always. Yeah. Here's 2 seconds for, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's too hard to speculate on. So we shouldn't dive into that, but
I think something interesting here is the Nuggets have 2 picks. They have the Suns pick and they have their own pick. Didn't they also acquire another pick?
They did.
Or was that the Suns pick?
Is that the one they got in that trading away? Who was it? So they traded and got 21. But
okay, yeah.
So they have 21 and 30.
Right. They have the Suns pick and they have what I assume is their own pick.
Yeah. Or yes, it is.
Right. So 21 is their own pick and 30 is the Suns. I think that's really interesting because last year they drafted Bones Highland, who played really great minutes for them throughout the whole year. And so, a team that's going to come back off an injury season, they have the MVP.
Right.
Could be really interesting. I think they're going to find a lot of value.
Yeah. I mean, and I think there will be. I mean, we've seen smart teams have been able to pluck talent in the 20s pretty consistently. And we've seen it with the Nuggets specifically. They have a great front office. So
actually, I really like the picks that Tankathon has them taking. Marjon Beauchamp out of the G League, who I think is like a scoring wing, cutter shooter.
Right.
He's big. He's 6'7", so could potentially be good on defense. And they also have Patrick Baldwin at 30. Tankathon has him taking him at 30.
Interesting.
Who was I think he was a top 10 prospect, but because he opted to play in Milwaukee and then where his dad was the coach and then had a bad season, hasn't been ranked as highly as his potential might lead on. So you might have another like Michael Porter Jr. type situation where they kind of get a steal on a guy who could be better than where he was drafted.
Yeah. I mean, that does typically happen in the 20 to 30 range where you see guys slipping for whether it's injury concerns, whatever it might be. And then they can be steals. And so they have 2 shots at that now in between 20 and 30. So, you know, I think they're definitely in a good spot. And then they're on cheap deals for a potential title run. I actually think it makes a ton of sense for them. So
it does make a ton of sense.
I am pumped for Thursday though, Luke.
I think the Hornets also have good position too. Tankathon has them taking Mark Williams at 13, which I think is a great pick because they need a center really bad. And then they also have 15, which I think could turn into something. I think there are valuable players in the 14 to 20 range. So whoever they pick with that pick could potentially end up being positive for them.
Definitely. And I mean, I think that's one where you almost take best available or like fit almost alongside LaMelo, Bridges, whoever you pick in the pick before that. And you just kind of plug that hole a little bit with a nice young guy with like complimentary, like definitely a good shooter, that sort of thing. I think, which is why, again, not to get back to it, I was a little surprised Atkinson went back on his word because I think it would have been a pretty good destination for him to be in. But I don't know, Luke. I guess we'll see Thursday. I am.
I keep forgetting that the draft's on Thursday.
I know it's Thursday. We got a couple days. But Luke, I am reluctantly needing to let you know that it is now dinner time. I got to hop off here. I know we've been on for a while anyway, so we got a good long ep.
Who cooks dinner? Your mom?
Yes. So we are home. We're
home
taking care of Papa.
Tending to Dad.
Yep. So it is. Mom, home cooked meal. Got to get upstairs while it's hot.
Delicious.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to continue to hold you.
You are not holding me, Luke. I'm gonna be texting you all night. Anything that pops up on Twitter, that it might be.
So many Twitter notifications. My Twitter's been blown up today.
I know, that's my bad.
No, I love you.
I had the day off.
It gives me an excuse to like look away from
work. Yep. So I hear you. But Luke, good luck in your game later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And to those who have made it this far, this is the Hoop Troop podcast. Thank you for tuning in and join us next time for a little post-draft session. Whatever.